Hey, hey, hey. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everyone doing? My kids are home. They make noises. Beware, you can have some background screaming and whatever kids do. Hey, good morning, Kuru. EOP, Babo 220. Good stuff. So, I'm all good. It's Friday. I'm happy. It's going to be a weekend. And also, they say the temperature will be very warm, like 20 degrees Celsius. And just as a side note, you should really invest in a good microcloth um, to every time you start using your tablet or Cintiq, you should wipe it, remove all the dust particles, because and grease from your skin or oil, uh, because in the long run you're gonna start moving these dust particles with a pen, and what that does is it scratches the surface really, really fast. So put in some money into buying a good microcloth, not just any microcloth, uh, but a good one for screens, and you'll save money in the long run by not having to send your Cintiq in for repairs or whatever. Kuro, yeah, I heard that Finland will also have a good temperature. Good morning, Captain Jetlag. Right, so what as it's 85, it's going to be comfort zone. Hey, meow. Hey, Sayert, good morning. As it's every fifth comfort zone, so I'm going to be doing whatever. Um, so it's going to be good. And make sure also, by the way, on the topic of screens, change your nib. You can buy more nibs, order it from Amazon or whatever. It doesn't cost that much. And you'll make money of it in the long run by not having to send repairs for like 300. Anyways, I want to say a big shout out to Meow. Thank you very much for the donation. Um, very, very grateful for it. Uh, all like I said before, all the donations are gonna go towards the community, and I will definitely be using all these fantastic donations that you guys have been doing. Um, so thanks again, Meow. It's very appreciated. I appreciate it a lot. Hey, Kuru. Sorry, I was reading something. Yeah, I'll talk about that, Kuru. Um, so what I think about like safe designs, right? It's when it can go more than one direction. But what I think about when I say safe designs is that uh, like the envelope isn't pushed enough. You know, like let's say you're making a hero, um, and you maybe add a scar to his face, or you know you add some sort of trope or a stereotype or something to add just add flavor to it, um, and 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 it's just enough to get the idea across when we talk about design as in accessories or character traits, visual character traits. Um, You know, like if you're gonna push the character, you know, what, like the, let's say a hero or a villain, like how, what's the facial expression, you know, does his skin look greasy or dry, or does he have a skin condition or a liver disease, or, you know, like I've talked about this on my lecture on character design. It's like to 100% an idea. Like, so if you have an idea or you're designing a character or, you know, a monster, at, to what degree can you push it so that it's without a doubt very clear and solidified the idea of what you're trying to communicate. And when it that's one part of it, and another part is like when it comes to shapes. If you're designing something that's safe, um, that doesn't have an explicit shape or combination of shapes, that if it's too safe, like let's say you're adding someone with a big mechanical arm, and this big mechanical arm is just slightly bigger than normal size, uh, and the shapes that in there are very close to real muscles, and you know that itself isn't too safe. You know, if you think about Deus Ex, right? They have very anatomically correct prosthetics, but their designs are far from safe because they're playing with material, they're playing with contrast, they're playing with technology, you know, what that looks like. So in that way, they're not safe, but the shape are very natural and real. So in that regards, it's, you know, it's a bit, it's about pushing the concept further in whatever direction is needed for it to for you as a viewer to be sold on it. And when I say that something feels safe, it's that it just sits in the middle, right? It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't have a statement or a twist or something that, so that separates the kind of in the middle of the road safely placed idea, and you know, be it play with contrast, play with colors, play with materials, play with shapes, you know, take it one step further, like really chase the idea. Oh, the timer is not on. Thank you very much. Let's say we've done it for 5 minutes. I'm gonna have to give myself some penalty. Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, approximately 5 minutes, more or less. Some penalty, a minute here or there. Yeah, so when it comes to doing safe designs, I think like a combination of everything. It's like, is there enough personality? Is there enough interest in shapes? Is there correct use of patterns? Or, you know, all these things, they are a little bit um, vague to define. You know, how can you like say like a rule set what makes a design safe or not? But like a lot of the things I talked about is that like you don't pursue an idea enough, uh, you just add enough, just enough to sell the idea without pushing. You know, I think it's always important to try to push a concept, to push an idea, push a presentation of an idea, or something like that. And you can you can kind of see it in a lot of people when they're like when they start with a concept without taking it fully, the full length of the concept. Like Glenn Vilpo talk about this when he talks about anatomy and capturing gesture. Like, for example, he talks about that when you do try to capture someone dancing or a pose or motion, that you should exaggerate the lines you put down, right? So that you just try to capture the feel of the motion, and so on. You know, that if you try to be too accurate, you're going to stiffen up the pose. And what he talked about was that first you exaggerate the pose, you exaggerate the motion or the arc of the back or the stance or whatever, you know, just exaggerate it. And then when you do capture the pose, when you think that, oh, this is the pose, what it feels like, and if you later on go back to this pose and want to redraw it, you know, because you've already captured the pose, the essence of the pose, right? And then when you redraw it with that expressive sketch as a reference, you start adding knowledge, you start correcting the pose, right? And you're making its difference differ, and you're going to lose a lot of that dynamics, because you have to correct mistakes, right? You have to correct the things that is inaccurate because you exaggerate. But if you do that the same way, but you do it quite safely at first without exaggerating the pose, you try to be very accurate and not exaggerated. Then when you go back to it and add theory and correct measurements and muscles and corrections and all these things, you're going to go even stiffer, and you're going to lose a lot of that energy or soul that's in the original pose, because, well, it comes through naturally by adding knowledge to something that it stiffens up a bit, because you're obviously not copying the real world. You're using your knowledge that you've gathered and adding reason to something that's quite emotional, and you're losing a lot of expression by adding emotion or knowledge. So that's one of the things, like, I tried to make a point, was that when you're doing a concept and it feels safe, a lot of times is that you're starting the concept by starting in a safe place, right? And you haven't really pushed the ideas out and really taking them far. And a lot of times it shows in beginners and intermediate kind of artists, that they could try hard to come up with an idea, and you know, that's really good, but it also that it almost looks like they don't want to make a mistake, or they want to sit in a specific category, and they don't want to, they're like afraid of doing something wrong. It almost looks like. Hey, EOP Poison and Sofa Strangler. I have no idea. Um, Today the topic is comfort zone, as it's 85. I'm just drawing some sort of monster. Randomness. I always tend to do monsters when I just don't think about anything and draw. Hey, good morning, Kilrathi. EOP poison, yeah, monsters are definitely easy to draw, and I think that's one of the joys of doing monsters is just you don't need to don't need to think that much because you can just use easy tools like body horror or incorrect anatomy to make something interesting, and no one can say it's wrong, because well, it's an exaggerated anatomy. There is no things as monsters, so you're free to come up with something. But it's a bit of a cop out as well. Just saying, oh, it's a monster, it looks that way. But in this instance, it's fun. I'm just doing it for fun. Switching things up a bit. And it's Friday. We can't go wrong with Friday. But as you probably guessed, I love doing monsters. And also thinking about character design and concept art. And that's where I spend most of my days thinking about trying to up my game as well as thinking about how to teach others. And it's good fun. EOP, yeah. Human anatomy to draw correctly is always tricky. And there's always a challenge to get all those proportions correct and not and to I'd say to exaggerate the right places. It's tricky. You obviously always want some expressive pose or expressive proportions, but it's always tend to be a lot of artists do it very pubescently. Like good clickbait. Kuru. Yeah, I think it's quite common though. You shouldn't feel bad about it. I think a lot of beginners uh, have a tendency to be worried about things that of doing something right or wrong that is not really worth worrying about. And that's going to be also part of I think, about my lecture on IFCC this year, because I'm talking about creativity, and like you probably figured out yourself, Kuro, that because you're worried about all these things, that you're limiting your creativity, and I don't think that's right. I think a lot of people need to just relax and like create safe zones in their mind, as well as presence on internet, etc. That where experimentation and failing is allowed and should be allowed, and doing mistakes and testing things out. I mean, if you look at my conceptart.org sketchbook thread, I mean, most of all the art is offline because server change and server crashes and whatnot. Uh, but a lot of when you do see images there from my sketchbook, is that a lot of it is purely exploratory, purely uh, you know edge to edge, full of failure and experimentations and testings. But the funny thing is, like, I got so many jobs based on that sketchbook because the clients saw that I was experimenting and testing new things, and they knew that if they would hire me, first of all, they would see that they saw that I'm working hard, right? And secondly is that I'm really striving to come up with new things, and they would know that hiring me would give them the ability to get something new, and and they could only see that I'm experimenting by seeing my failures, and my failed attempts and explorations and tests, and if I would have kept all those offline and only showed my best, what I thought was best at the time, because we're all at different places artistically, we're all at different places taste-wise, and I wouldn't say maybe I would have get as many contracts at that time if I only showed my best work over. As in the best work, as in portfolio, what I deemed as portfolio-worthy pieces, while a lot of people were looking at my art as a production artist or a pre-production artist and saw that I could come up with cool stuff. Maybe technically I wasn't there as a fine artist or illustrator or whatever, but the fact that I was like creative. If they're dreadlocks, I don't know what they are. Currently they're hanging like dreadlocks, but my idea is that I want them to be a little bit like tentacles, like they are alive. Yeah, by the way, I'm happy to see new people joining Discord. It's great. Also great to see people posting their 2 week challenge entries, which is fantastic. Some new contributors, which is really cool. Looking forward to tomorrow, um, where I'll be doing paintovers. And tomorrow's stream is always, as per usual, around 8 o'clock UK time, um, 8 o'clock in the evening, not in the morning. And I tend not to post notifications when the stream starts, but I think I got to start doing it more. Um, it used to, I mean, it will gather more people, and it's good for the community to have potentially more people joining in and being a part of the fun. Kuru, yeah, that's interesting. I think that's a really interesting observation, and I think it's definitely worth you thinking about that and how that holds you back. Um, I think also what's a really good thing to think about is um, pushing yourself. I think it's really good. I think you gotta push yourself, but you also need to have a balance where you can't just do that all the time. You also have to have some fun. The fact that like um, that a lot of people just tend to focus on making portfolio worthy things straight off the bat, like without doing the homework or without testing out things and experimenting with ideas or approaches. They just kind of just jump straight in. Yeah, kid's daughter came in. but I've always kind of been surprised by that. Like there was this challenge back in the days called Thunderdome, where a lot of artists signed up to be a part of this competition, right? And they, as far as I know, they got randomly paired up against artists. So if you signed up for this competition, you know, you could have faced like Marko Djurdjevic or random amateur hobbyist artist. You didn't know who you would be paired up with. But let's say it was like 40 artists who signed up. And round one was a topic, and everyone drew on this topic. And then at the deadline was like, I think it was 2 months or a month or something like that. And then when the deadline was, everyone had to submit their final, and then there were judges who looked at what you did versus what your opponent did, and the winner went on to round two, which was all the winners of the competition of round one moved on to round two, and then they randomly drew new opponents. So that round two was just all the round one winners versus randomly picked round one winner, you know, so that winner versus winner. And then they did that like a knockout competition until there was the finale, right? And then it was, then there was a Thunderdome winner, you know, classic 2 men enter, 1 man leaves from the movie Mad Max. My point of this whole thing was that what you could see with a lot of people, because they first of all at the beginning didn't know who they were facing up against, right? And if even the professionals, you know, like seasoned professionals, they had to man up, you know, they had to try to save face, right? If they lost against a newbie, you know, that would be, people would talk about it, you know. So the pros had to put effort in at the same time as the amateurs, you know, had to or the beginners had to put the effort in. And what you could see was a lot of people were experimenting with composition, experimenting with topic, experimenting and helping each other, and I think a lot of people are not doing that anymore, you know, to the same degree of applying yourself or applying your skill set, in the sense of, you know, okay, let's say that we're going to do a portfolio piece, and you know, okay, I have to add a piece to my portfolio, and by just choosing a drawing that you think you could finish, that would look good finished, and then just roll up your sleeve and start rendering, that itself will not have as a good result as if you would redraw it, and then, you know, think about statement or the reason why you should paint this, or what's the character, or what's the illustration, or what's the environment, and then break it down, you know, start doing studies, think about the poses the characters should be having, do pose studies, you know, try and really perfect the piece. I mean, if you look at all the fine art masters, you know, like they didn't just, you know, sit down and paint the painting from start to scratch, from scratch to finish. I mean, you know, they did studies, they had models, they redrew the fingers over and over again on a separate piece until they figured out, oh, that's the hand position I want. You know, they need, you know, the very subtle changes, and so many artists are not doing that, you know, for their portfolio pieces or their big project piece. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm free of fault. I'm definitely doing that myself from time to time, the same mistake, and especially in production art where it's not fine art and it has to be delivered and all these things. But I'm not saying that you should do that for your production art either. But doing those studies, doing that amount of effort into, let's say, your personal art is just going to up your game because you're applying yourself, you're applying your knowledge, or you're really pushing everything, and just grabbing a random sketch and trying to finish it isn't the strongest way to do things, which I see a lot of people do. You know, they do that mistake a lot. That was a weird rant. Shitting on people. Baba 220. Yeah, maybe. My son likes to draw. Um, the karate, the Thunderdome competition was really interesting because there was a lot of famous artists, a lot of amateurs or beginners, and a lot of times it was a close draw for the artist versus pro or the beginner versus pro. Um, at that time, I was kind of working as a professional, but nowhere close to being what I'm at the skill level I am today, for example. But I won. I think I came each. I think it was 2 or 3 Thunderdomes. I came to semi-final each time. I always lost to like some big name at the time, big name artist. Uh, but I had lots of fun doing it, and a lot of the entries at that time where I did um, like applied myself to try to do a best good of a job as possible. A lot of those pieces that I did were in my portfolio for a long time because I had to up my game because I wanted to win over professionals at the time, and it became this measuring contest. You know, but it's true. People always want that. All people always want, and they want to know if they're doing things right. And I'm coming back to it again, but it's really important to join competitions where you try your very best, like or final project at university or things like that. You know, you just can't half-ass it. You have to really try to push hard and do your best. Anyways, time's up. Thanks everyone for coming. I think it was a pretty good stream. odd rant. A lot of shitting on people. Hopefully no one was offended. Um, have a great day. Good night. See you tomorrow, Saturday evening at 8 p.m. UK time. It's the deadline for the 2-week challenge. Then I'll be posting a new challenge. So have a good day, everyone. Bye.